Chapter 13. Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, a poor woodcutter lived in a tiny cottage in the forest with his second wife. First one died of fever, and his two children from the first wife. The boy was called Hansel and the girl Gretel. He had little to bite and to break, and once when a great famine occurred on the land, he could no longer get even daily bread. He thought over this by night in his bed, and tossed about in his anxiety. He groaned and said to his wife, "What is to become of us? How will we feed our poor children?" "I will tell you what, husband," answered the woman. "Early tomorrow morning, we will take the children out into the forest to where it is the thickest. There we will light a fire for them and give each of them one more piece of bread, and then we will go to our work and leave them alone. They will not find the way home again, and we shall be rid of them." "No, dear," said the man, "I will not do that. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest? The wild animals would soon come and tear them to pieces." "Oh, you fool," said his wife, "then we must all four die of hunger. You may as plan the plans for our coffins." And she left him no peace until he consented. The two children had also not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmom had said to their father. Gretel wept bitter tears and said to Hansel, "Now all is over with us." "Be quiet, Gretel," said Hansel. "Do not distress yourself. I will soon find a way to help us." And when the old folks had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the door below, and crept outside and stooped and stuffed the little pocket of his coat with white pebble stones, as many as he could get in. In the morning, when they had walked a short time, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and did so again and again. His father said, "Hansel, what are you looking at there and staying behind for? Pay attention and do not forget how to use your legs." "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my little white cat, which is sitting upon the roof and wants to say goodbye to me." Hansel, however, had not been looking back at the cat, but had been constantly throwing one of the white pebble stones out of his pocket on the road. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "Now, children, pile up some wood, and I will light a fire that you may not be cold." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and when noon came, each ate a little piece of bread. As they had been sitting such a long time, their eyes closed with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they awoke, it was already dark night. Gretel began to cry and said, "How can we get out of the forest now?" But Hansel comforted her and said, "Just wait a little until the moon has risen, and then we will soon find the way." And when the full moon had risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the pebbles, which shone like newly coined silver pieces, and showed them the way. They walked the whole night long, and by break of day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you were never coming back at all." The father, however, rejoiced, for it had cut him to the heart to leave them behind alone. The woman told her husband, "The children must go. We will take them after into the wood, so that they will not find their way out again. There is no other means of saving ourselves." The children, however, were still awake and had heard the conversation, When the old folks were asleep, Hansel again got up and wanted to go out and pick up pebbles as he had done before. But the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted his little sister and said, "Do not cry, Gretel, go to sleep quietly. The good God will help us." Early in the morning came the woman and took the children out of their beds. Their piece of bread was given to them, but it was still smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled the bread in his pocket and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground. Then a great fire was again made. When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep and evening passed, but no one came to the poor children. When the moon came, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many thousands of birds which fly about in the woods and field had picked them all up. Hansel said to Gretel, "We shall soon find the way." But they did not find it. They walked the whole night and all the next day too, from morning till evening, but they did not get out of the forest, and were very hungry, and as they were so weary that their legs would carry them no longer, they lay down beneath a tree and fell asleep. It was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always came deeper into the forest, and if help did not come soon, they must die of hunger and weariness. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened to it. And when its song was over, it spread its wings and flew away before them. And they followed it until they reached a little house, on the roof of which it alighted. And when they approached the little house, they saw that it was built of bran and covered with cakes, but that windows were of clear sugar. Then a soft voice cried from the parlor, "Who is nibbling at my little house?" Children did not answer and went on eating without disturbing themselves. Chapter 14